Spiritual Mag update, July 15th, 2022. Well, what's going on out there? Today, we're going to be taking a look at UFOs and water. What's happening with UFOs and water? A lot's been happening with UFOs underwater in the last 2 weeks. A lot. But first, elevating consciousness. Everybody wants to elevate consciousness, some people more than others. But I think everyone wants to elevate consciousness at some level. And it's change, so some people are resistant to change, to improving their compassion, not judging themselves and others. So sometimes people need help to elevate their consciousness. And the purpose of that is so that we don't do something disrespectful to one another. We work it out verbally with communication skills rather than with sticks or stones or bullets or bombs or profanities, but rather we work it out as loving adults. And it can be done that way. So World War III is a spiritual war. It's not about greed for control. I mean, it is about greed for control. So tolerance and understanding that we all are one is the end of is the direction we have to go. All of us have to do it that way. So social media is not helping right now. It just isn't helping. Okay? So it's going to be your oral musculature, your airflow, your natural organic thought processes shared with other people is what's going to make consciousness move forwards. Very few things that are coming through digital media are going to help. It's going to have to be from you, coming from your heart chakra, out your oral mechanism, into the auditory pathway of the people that you love and respect. No. 3 days after the last update, my producer is walking with his lovely bride, Grace, and they see a red orb, unusual red orb. So he had never seen a UFO, but we've been working on UFO shows, and so his phone's busted. So he had to scramble and get his wife's phone and get the orb again in the sky going into the ocean, here, the Pacific Ocean in Lima. So that's what's happening now. A lot of this is happening now on the planet, all around the planet, especially the last week. A lot's been happening. All kinds of things have been happening, especially in South America. I think South America is just a little more progressive in terms of UFOs. I think California is too, which is pretty cool. So, now myself, my interactions first really started with this UFO stuff back in 1999. I had a small meditation center on Waiheke Island, New Zealand. I was a permanent resident of New Zealand. And Daisy, working through a Vogel cut crystal, helped me locate and identify the murderer of a Japanese language student. He was on a ship going back to Japan. And I was very excited that I located him, and it worked out that he didn't get away. I really respect New Zealand. And afterwards, I thought, what can I do to help the planet? And I asked Daisy, what can I do to help the planet? Where can I go? Where's the best place to go to help the planet? And she pointed out on a world map, it took bigger than the top of my desk, a spot in Arizona. So I'm in New Zealand, so I got my best Arizona maps in New Zealand, not easy, and kept dowsing with the crystal and kept going to the same spot in Arizona, but there was no name there. It was just wilderness. So I asked my girlfriend at the time, do you want to go with me to go to this spot? Daisy said, this is the place to go. She said, sure. So we flew back to San Francisco, went to the location, but it was storming big time. So went into town, about an hour away, Sedona, maybe an hour and a half away, Sedona. And I was eating some chocolate, some cheesecake, no, apple pie at the first grocery store when you come into town. And a lady walked in, nicely dressed. Her name was Rita Livingston. She handed me a piece of paper. She said, "I'm so glad you're here. We've been waiting for you. Come to this meeting tonight." I'm like, "Oh, okay." So I thought, oh, it's some kind of business thing or, some kind of marketing thing, or I don't know. So my girlfriend and I went into town, got a nice place, air conditioner, sat on the bed, nothing on TV. And so I said, well, let's go to this thing. So I thought it was like some kind of multi-marketing thing or something. So we got lost. And when we finally got to the address, it was a house on a hillside. And there was a bunch of cars there. We had to park a distance and walked up to the front door, knocked on the door, and then a guy opened the door. And there was a whole bunch of ladies in there, all looking at the door, because he was speaking at the rest of the room, and we were interrupting. So I'm like, what the hell? They said, go to the back. So we went around the back, went all the way down the back, came in the back sliding door into the kitchen, into the little dining room there. And a lady handed me a piece of paper, and it was a topographical map. And it had the Flower of Life on it. And my spot that I was supposed to go to was the spot that I identified in New Zealand, repetitively. And it was right near Grand Canyon Caverns. So I'm like, cool. And it turned out that these were ladies that came from all around the world. And these were what you refer to as crones, spiritual elder women. And we were releasing the contract from Earth Divas that were made with the Hopis. And it was very cool. Very cool. Very cool. Had to do with the water and the depth of the water in the Grand Canyon there, that location, and being respectful to the water as the blood of the planet, of what the Hopi and the people need to thrive. Very, very cool. Very, very cool. It's the birth of a water ceremony, actually. Okay, so years later, I moved to Peru, and 2020, maybe 2020. I go to make a video of receiving a message in Chilca, Peru. And I'm with Fernando, the producer, and Jared, the cameraman. And the three of us go to Chilca, no schedule. It's a documentary, it's no script. And sure enough, we get connected with Junior, and Junior's just has a story that he really needs to share. It's just a mind-blowing story. And in the process, I say to his mom, I would like to make a donation because they don't really have much. I want to make a donation. And he didn't want the donation. He declined the donation. What he wanted me to do was answer a question that he had about the Grand Canyon and a vision that he had from these giant off-planet beings and the message that they brought. And he wanted me to answer the question. And his question was, what was he supposed to do? And I've shared with him that he did it. He shared it with me. And the message has gone full cycle now because this is 2022. So it's more than 20 years ago, this occurred. And it's a confirmation of it. And the continuation of it is, which is very cool, Fernando, the producer, sees on Google or Yahoo that they find this giant disc under the water off the coast of Peru. Well, where Junior's pointing is exactly where this disc is. And if you kind of angle it from where the Nazca lines are, it looks like they were coming in from the angle of the Nazca lines, and it's right out where Junior saw it come down. And they brought a heavy, heavy message. And the message was, first they asked, have you stopped killing one another? That was the first thing they asked Junior. These are giants, two giants that landed on the hill. They asked Junior telepathically, have you stopped killing one another? And solidarity. That's what he received as the message. Everyone's equal. Everyone. That's the message that they sent directly to him, that he shared with me, that I'm sharing with you now. Which you can't say you didn't hear it. Okay? Now these orbs are all over the place now. There's lots of orbs being reported. Tijuana and California near San Diego this week, which is pretty cool. And you can find them. So what's happening? What is happening? Well, something's going on even more than we think is going on. People think, okay, there's UFOs, the government knows. Okay, yeah, right. Then some people go, well, there's UFOs and the government knows, and there's aliens that are working with the UFOs. Oh, okay, maybe. And then there's UFOs and there's aliens, and there's captured aliens, and they made a contract with Eisenhower, and now we're reconstructing UFOs and parts of UFOs and pretending we're UFOs, and we get people that are dwarfs and clones and pretend that they're aliens and clones, and we put those in our back engineered UFO vehicles. People think that, but they're not telling you the truth, what's really happening. What's happening is all the races that seeded us have planted stuff on the planet. Been here a long time. People are calling them arcs. They're like, seed packages of genetics of the people that are here. And they're kind of like waking up now. They're kind of like waking up. And they're in places like, under the ice and deep under the ocean where you wouldn't find them, So they're not going to tell you that. Media is not going to even make a hint about that because they're not going to know anything about it. But now it's kind of like coming out. And that's potentially one reason Russia invaded Ukraine. Supposedly, there might be an arc that's awakening, which is pretty cool, especially when you think of nuclear war, thermonuclear war, tactical nuclear war. We just came out of a health crisis. God knows what's going to happen. It'd be kind of nice if people elevated their consciousness. And these seeded vehicles, arcs or whatever. I in a prior video, I described the vehicle that I saw that came from Orion, and it was miles wide. I cannot estimate how wide it was. It was just huge, perfectly round, crisp edges, ginormous. The ones under the ocean, like the ones that Fernando found, and the one that was on Yahoo, I think they're like 5 miles, something like that. So what's happening? These things are waking up. People are changing. The Schumann resonance is elevating. Consciousness is elevating. And people are coming to the point where they don't trust media anymore. So they're not going to trust what they're being told. They've got the booster, they got the shots, they got all the stuff and bullshit. They're not going to do it anymore. They don't trust it. They don't believe it anymore. So now they're starting to think of themselves, and their consciousness is going to elevate. And eventually enough people are going to elevate their consciousness that we're going to be able to meet the minimum threshold to hang out with these extraterrestrial loving beings that are here to help. Rather than use the devices and technologies to injure and harm one another, use the technologies and gifted knowledge from our higher up brothers and sisters to make our environment a better place. That's what's going to happen. That's what everyone's going to participate in. It's called consciousness evolution. Evolution inside will lead to solidarity and compassion, which opens the doors for greater realities. Only by going inside and healing each one of us will the outer environmental reality of compassion thrive. You and all your loved ones are always in my prayers. Samuel Joseph Bell, Spiritual Mag.